Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and now that my obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community, and a number of people have awared me that Alexander Leonidas, aka AlphaDestiny, aka Strap-On Destiny, aka Grimly the Dwarf, or simply known as the Dwarf Lord, has made a video justifying and discussing his soy boy diet. Now, before I really be that condescending about that, let me make this clear to people. I do have many, many years of being around strength sports, strength training, different diets. I have actually been a vegan. I've competed in powerlifting as a vegan, and I've competed in powerlifting even doing meat-based ketogenic diets and everything in between. All right. I have personal experience with this stuff, and I know a lot of coaches who have run all these different diets through their athletes. I'm going to completely disagree based on my experience and that of different athletes and the data and everything else regarding the nonsense that he said here. Let's keep in mind, Alex is not just new to coaching, and I mean, really, as I've said before, didn't have the experience and training to be putting out training books when he did. Let's be honest, he doesn't have that much experience with plant-based diets. When he says that lack of protein isn't the issue, I'm going to completely disagree. I've bulked on plant-based diets. Or again, what I call plant-based, which means you're not eating animal products. Like rice is a plant. Beans are a plant. Peanuts are a plant, right? So that's plant-based if that's what you're eating. If you're not eating meat or dairy, you're pretty well plant-based. In my experience, calories is not the issue. He tried to say, look, the biggest problem that people have is getting enough calories. I never found that to be an issue. It's way easier to overeat plant-based foods, even when you're not eating junk food. People say, well, what do you mean? Beans, rice? Like beans and rice? You guys telling me you can't eat 4,000 calories of beans and rice? I can. That's not hard. That's not hard at all. You can way overeat rice. How about peanut butter? Are you guys telling me you can't eat a 2,300 calorie jar of natural peanut butter in one sitting? I'm sorry, calories are just not that hard to get on a plant-based diet. It's hard if you are literally eating like a raw vegan, right? But even fruits and stuff, it's not that hard to eat 2,000 calories of bananas. The carbs and even the pure fats are not really an issue. Those are not hard to eat. It's when you're eating the really, really fibrous foods. Right, I mean, eating 2,000 calories of broccoli is hard. Eating 2,000 calories of spinach is hard. But actually, even 2,000 calories of watermelon can be hard. Not necessarily bananas, oranges, rice, or even beans and rice mixed together. Peanut butter, perfect example. It's easy to overeat peanut butter. These are not really a problem. I don't think the calories are the real problem. I had no trouble bulking. I had no trouble gaining fat. Any of that on plant-based diets in the past. It's actually really easy. You can bulk up and gain fat really quickly on these sort of diets. It's not hard at all. So I'm not really sure where he gets that from. Again, he probably seems to have very limited experience with it. So my experience on it is that your issue is getting enough protein. Enough B12 is a big issue also. And as an athlete, B12 is important. But the protein itself is an issue. It absolutely is. Because what we know in my own experiences, having done bulking and cutting and other stuff on different diets over the course of my lifetime, I can tell you guys that it is much, much easier to not gain as much fat when bulking on much, much higher amounts of protein and animal protein versus on a plant-based diet. All right, it is actually difficult to get enough protein to handle your muscle gaining needs while keeping calories in check. It's difficult to get enough protein to handle your recovery, your inflammation, your connective tissue. We're not just talking about just building muscle. We're not talking about just building muscle. And let's go back to the point of what Alex has done recently. Like he's been doing this sort of diet, then what happened? He was trying to do all this training volume for his arms, and what he complained about? His elbows hurt, his tendons hurt. He started having connective tissue inflammation. All right, in my experience, that is indicative of not getting enough protein. Lots of coaches have noticed this over the years, that usually people who start getting connective tissue inflammation from higher training volumes, they usually need more fat in their diet. They usually can cut their carbs a little bit, add more animal proteins and more fats into their diet, and it resolves their connective tissue inflammation. All right, this is something that's been noted. The sort of diet I run, running a keto style diet, actually controls this very, very effectively. But let's come over to that point about muscle growth and inflammation. All right, that's actually an issue. Very much an issue for people on plant-based diets. And again, the connective tissue end is a big deal with their protein intake. So it's not just the protein intake, it's protein bioavailability. Like we could go look at something like beans or peanut butter and say, hey, there's a decent amount of protein relative to its calories until you look at the bioavailability of it. It's hard to absorb that protein. Right? We're dealing with total bioavailability for some of those might only be 60%. So your 100 grams of protein isn't really 100 grams of protein, is it? It's more like 60. And it's not, I'm not saying they're incomplete proteins. Some of them are not as complete as they could be, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your actual ability to absorb all of it through your digestive system. Right? There are digestive problems with a lot of these plant-based proteins in terms of absorbing all of them. That's actually an issue. That is an issue. So what we usually find, though, is that the older we get as lifters, the more protein that we need to take in order to handle things like our joints and connective tissue as far as their recovery from higher training volumes. And look at what he's experienced right there. He's a perfect example. He's been running this sort of plant-based diet, and what is he talking about? His tendons hurt. Recently made videos having to deal with it, corrective measures for it. His tendons hurt. Yeah, your diet's playing a role. Diet's playing a role. Promise you, if you were on a different diet, you would have been able to go to longer and harder training workloads before you ran into that issue. If you've been running, say, what I'm doing, a keto-style diet, and this is something a lot of athletes, I'm not talking about recreational lifters, I'm talking athletes I know who are over 40, a very large number of them I know who are oftentimes coaches and stuff themselves find that higher fat, lower carb, animal-based diets seem to work really, really well when you're on very high training volumes for keeping your tendons from getting inflamed with tendon recovery. A lot of us notice this, and people notice this who I know who are coaches and serious athletes. And again, something this younger kid doesn't have a lot of experience with. He doesn't have much experience working with actual athletes who are in their 30s, 40s. Not one himself doesn't have that much experience. He's not going to realize this. And that's a perfect example. That's a big part of the problem. Yeah, the protein intake is insufficient for that. The quality of it's too low. And it's not just building muscle, but let's talk about building muscle. Has he built that much muscle since he's gone over to this style of diet? Has he even replicated some of his supposed strength feats? Remember that fake 225 press that he's done? Right? There was actually a push press. He hasn't been able to even push press 225 since he's gone plant-based. He can't even replicate his fake lift. It was a supposed strict press that was a push press, which we covered already. He hasn't been able to replicate that since going plant-based. How about any sort of heavy deadlift? Has he been able to actually deadlift? And guys will say he deadlifted 585 because he didn't. That was a missed lift. That lift was actually failed. He could not lock it. Even with straps, he couldn't lock it. He failed the lock. He was not capable of deadlifting sumo 585. He's a short guy deadlifting sumo. That gives him a big advantage. All right, he should have a leverage advantage. Guys his height can usually pull more sumo than they can conventional. Pretty normal. Still couldn't do it. So he missed that lift. Has he been able to deadlift over 500 pounds since he's gone plant-based? Has he really made gains? Has he gained strength? Has he gained performance? Or has he just gotten a bit leaner? He's gotten leaner. I don't know that he's made real gains or any sort of gain since doing it. So again, not just about calories. There's a protein issue. And again, a lack of strength gains, a lack of muscle gains. Yeah, he's gotten leaner, which is oftentimes easy to do on a really high fiber diet. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. But has he made gains? Has he tried to make lean gains without gaining large amounts of fat while doing this sort of diet anytime recently? He made substantial strength gains? No. But he has complained about his connective tissue, and that is one of the big problems for people who don't eat large amounts of animal products, who are serious athletes who put in any sort of serious workload. Connective tissue problems, they rise up. And again, most coaches who work in this area know this. They know this. So again, I'm going to say to him, no, it's not just caloric. Calories are not that hard to get. You can eat rice and bananas to get calories. You can eat peanut butter to get calories. The protein is a big deal, and it is one of the biggest problems. It absolutely is. It's very hard to do on that sort of diet, on a plant-based diet, to get enough quality protein, and it's hard. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it is an extreme effort required to do so. Especially not just for gaining muscle and strength, but for, again, connective tissue recovery and overall recovery from your training. Getting B12, all these things, these are problems, right? These are problems. And they're real problems. They're a hell of a lot harder than getting enough calories, because there are calorically dense plant-based foods. There are plenty of them out there. So again, I'm going to disagree with him completely on this, and I think it does show his own lack of experience in this area. He hasn't been doing it that long. Let him run it long enough and he'll run into enough of these issues and he'll change his stance. Alright guys, well that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.